Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still watching Nile Cruise on Nile TV, and in this very special segment from the Namek, dear viewers, not so long ago, the world witnessed an extraordinary coming alive of Egypt's pharaonic past in the streets of Cairo, when 22 mummies were moved from the Egyptian Museum to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. The fanfare was absolute. Hundreds of men and women dressed in ancient fashion paraded the entire route. The dead, encased in their environment-controlled specifically designed vehicles, received the 21-gun salute, of course befitting their royal status, as they arrived in their new place and were welcomed by the President of Egypt, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The majestic event was streamed online for ancient Egypt and across the globe. And of course, dear viewers, in this context, we have with us a very special guest, which is the President of the Executive Authority of the National Museum of the Egyptian Civilization. And it's a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Ahmed Farouk Ghoneim. A very good day, sir. And it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Pleasure having you
here. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Pleasure having you here.
Thank you, sir, for having us, and thank you for being with us. So, Dr. Ghoneim, the first thing I want to ask you about is, what was the idea behind such a global spectacle? I mean, who was behind this great idea, behind the global spectacle of, transferring the mummies to this beautiful, innovative museum in Old Cairo in Fustat?
We need to differentiate between two things. The first thing is having the monuments, the mummies here. That this idea was in the pipeline for a long while, because here they will be displayed in a different way. They will be shown to the public in a different atmosphere, giving the visitors the atmosphere that they're in a grave and things like that. So this idea has been there for several years. But the idea of the parade is actually the idea mainly of His Excellency Dr. Khalid Al-Anani. He's the one who thought of the idea. At the beginning of the idea, when it was thought of, it was looked at as if it's a crazy idea, having the mummies being transferred in such a parade and being welcomed by the president. That was a crazy idea. But after a while, the idea started to have its appeal among the presidency and among the decision makers in Egypt. And execution of the idea was the main challenge, because you need to strike a balance between having a very prestigious kind of parade, which keeps the pride, which keeps the feeling of death in it, yet making it cheerful and respectable. And this striking of the balance needed more than 1.5 years of work and different meetings between the minister, the people in charge, the different agencies, because it's not only the idea, or it's not the execution mainly to the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, but we have the collaboration with different entities, including the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Interior, Cairo Governorate, Ministry of Transport, and so on and so forth. So the amount of coordination put in this event was huge, extraordinary, and unprecedented in that regard.
Sir, why was it necessary for Egypt to invoke the pharaohs to redefine itself and to confirm its historic identity?
Let me answer this. The idea, what happened with the parade, from my point of view, why did the Egyptians feel so proud about it? Why did the whole world feel so proud about it? Because the Egyptians always live on the idea of history. But with this parade, they felt that it's not only the history, it's the past and the present. We're able to create an event that respects our grandfathers, yet at the same time give it a type of modern technology and modern branding and modern execution of old ideas in a fashionable, respectable way. So in that sense, most of the people around the world felt it's different, it's unique. And here it is rebranding of our identity, but in a different way, keeping the core of it, but exposing it in a different context.
Okay, sorry, Muhammad.
Go ahead.
Sir, the timing of the parade when the entire world is witnessing the coronavirus, of
A
course,
lockdown, yeah.
pandemic, and it's a global pandemic, of course, and it was so facilitated and so easy, and the entire world was witnessing Egypt that day, especially. How did you see it, and what is your motto on that?
Okay. Most of the people, when they approached me at the beginning, they told me, "What the hell are you doing? You're
Exactly.
putting it in a lockdown where there is no impact on tourism and no tourists will come right now. Why are you doing this? Postpone it." Now, actually, the thinking of it was very, I would say, professional. First of all, if you recall, it was on a Saturday night, so you're actually choosing a time which is a weekend for Egyptians and abroad, a time which fits Europeans as well, the US. So you're having a time zone which is people are awake
Prime
at that
time.
time, a
Yeah.
prime time. And then the impact of it, people, I'm an economist, so I can easily tell you. The incidental impact, yes, nobody will come. But the kind of memorizing of such a parade in the minds of all people around the world, they would definitely wait till the lockdown is over and they will come to Egypt. So actually, we just postpone the revenue or the feedback that people come here. If we have done it in a normal time, when there is no lockdown, when people were able to visit everywhere, it wouldn't have been seen by those amount of people all over the world. So actually, it was a prime time. It was a perfect timing. The impact of it will come, but will come later when the lockdown is over.
Absolutely, the exposure was big. And in fact, Rana, like Dr. Ghoneim says, the fact that this was during a lockdown, maybe this gave us a bigger audience or a bigger exposure. Dr. Ghoneim, of course, Egypt has the longest history in the world, and it's a continuous history and a history that has a lot of variety. And your museum, the NMEC, is one that basically is designed on that idea, showcasing, portraying the Egypt, the civilization from the oldest of times, the ancient Egyptian civilization, to the contemporary. Can you walk us through the main displays that you have here and a chronology of the different civilizations that we've had here in Egypt? All of them were really world leading at one time or another.
Okay. Now, the idea of this museum is different. Normally, when we go to museums, we focus on Islamic, Coptic, Pharaonic, or what have you. The idea is to take you through a journey, an experience, all over different times. So it starts even before Pharaonic era, 35,000 BC. So we're actually talking about, we have here a skeleton for a guy from Upper Egypt, 35,000 years BC. And the tools he used to live with. And then you go through Pharaonic eras with different families in Pharaonic time. And then you go through the Roman, through the Greek, and then through the Coptic, and then through the Islamic, and then through the contemporary and modern history. The idea, all this in one place, around 2,000 meters, so it's not a big deal of moving around, with around 1,600 objects. So having a journey in Egypt history, and each showcase has a story by itself. So you see, for example, the story of music, and you see how it developed. There is also an interconnection between the showcases. So you can see what was the case during Pharaonic era and what was the case in Islamic era or Coptic era. So there is a connection. This idea of how you put the objects and how you show them took a huge time, a huge effort from people here in the museum as well as other people. And I would like to thank a person like Dr. Mahmoud Mabrouk, and his team was responsible for it. this had a huge amount of effort to include all this and to have this connection between the showcases and how to present it. Which part should it be this way or that way? Should it be up or down? Should it be in the behind? And the minister even was involved. I remember before the opening, we used to sit here to 1 and 2 a.m. in the morning and changing the showcases, opening it, and he's coming in. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not an Egyptologist, so I was giving my opinion as a visitor. But he was involved in everything. So it took a huge amount, and each piece has a history and a story behind it.
Dr. Ahmed Farouk Ghoneim, the president of the Executive Authority of the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. The site has changed completely after the cleaning up of the area and the lake surrounding the museum, of course. How do you see the drastic change in development in the surrounding area under your auspices, of course, sir?
Well, first, it's not under my auspices. This project has been there
for.
I was lucky to be there. Yes, I was lucky to be. I was lucky. I have to say.
I witnessed it before and I witnessed it after. So I have to hail the work that's been done.
But those are efforts of so many people.
Of course, sir.
My predecessors, as well as other. That's the Ministry of Housing, who did a lot of work as well in this area, and the Cairo Governorate. So it has been a collaborative work. But what is the idea of having such a place? The idea is that we're creating here in Egypt and in the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, the idea of promoting that the old style museums, that's only museums, is not there anymore. It cannot attract people. So the idea is to have antiquities mingled with entertainment, mingled with outings, like we will have restaurants, we will have bazaars selling handicraft and so on and so forth. And part of the development of this part is belonging to this new idea, is that you have new outings for Egyptians and foreigners who can join a whole day of entertainment, plus a little bit of education for their kids or for them, plus a little bit of culture, plus a huge part of it for visiting the mummies and the museum. So that fits the whole overview of how things are moving in this regard.
Yes. Dr. Ghoneim, the museum holds a variety of educational cultural and training activities. You, of course, coming from the academic background, leading professor of economics at Cairo University. Tell us about those educational activities, the cultural ones, the training activities.
Okay. Now, usually, we have something called here Tarbiyya Mathafiya, which is educational, museums education. And that is supposed to be targeting the kids, where they see something in the showcase and then they come out and try to make it themselves. Things like whatever they see, and they handle it, whether it's weaving or pottery or what have you. But we're taking this a step further by having some investors who are actually, and I won't say the name so that's not a kind of marketing for them, who are actually specialized in kids and families activities. And they are organizing with us here a special program and a special place for them to come. So it will be a mixture of education plus entertainment, building on the core, which is the museum stuff, and having it exposed and expressed for the family in a different, unique way.
Beautiful.
Okay, Dr. Ahmed, the museum is an exploration of Egypt's history through an exploration of its people, of course, as well as the monuments they built. On this display, there are thousands of artifacts selected from museums around Egypt. What are these museums, sir?
Now, normally, there is the Higher Council for Antiquities. And is headed by my colleague and friend, Dr. Mustafa Waziri. So that the people know, there is always a collaboration between the museums. Whether it is the Grand Museum, which is an entity by itself, or NEMIC, which is it's another entity by itself, or the other museums under the auspices of the Higher Council for Antiquities, such exchange of pieces, of objects, is very normal. So I can take a part from you, borrow it, and put it in my museum because it fits my showcase. So that's a very normal thing, and actually other parts are taken or other objects are taken for outside exhibitions. So that's a normal thing, but the objects themselves can be the belongings of a different museum. So it can some of the objects here belong to this museum, and others are borrowed. And some of our objects belong to other museums. So that's a normal thing, and it all fits how we show the world, what we have, in a very decent way.
Yes. Dr. Ghoneim, finally, we saw visitors from different nationalities while we were here preparing to shoot here at NMEC. How do you see the pickup? And we saw, of course, a lot of Egyptian visitors. How do you see the pickup of tourism in general after, you know, as we fight against the COVID-19 pandemic? And what do you see for the upcoming period, especially for the museum you are heading?
Now we're living in an uncertain era where nobody knows anything about what's going to happen tomorrow. But I can tell you that there is a pickup, as you said, in the number of tourists in Egypt in general. Most of the tourists you see here are either individuals living in Egypt, diplomatic missions or what have you, or they are coming to Hurghada and Sharm by charter, and then they come for 1 day or 2 days here. So the actual pickup that we are expecting still did not happen. According to the agencies, travel agencies that I talked with some of the representatives, we are expecting a huge pickup in August and September. So far, things on the museum level and on Egypt's level compared to other countries, we're doing fine, but still the potential is huge and still untapped.
Dr. Ahmed Farouk Ghoneim, President of the Executive Authority of the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, NMEC. Of course, it's a pleasure to have you with us in today's episode of Nile Cruise. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your informative knowledge. It was a pleasure to have you, sir, in our episode of Nile Cruise. And we wish we meet you again and make many interviews with you, because it's always wonderful listening to you and to learning more about our country through, of course, an informative and an intellectual person like yourself.
Thank you
so
for
much, sir,
coming, and thank you for visiting us, and you're always more than welcome to come here.
Thank you,
very much,
Dr.
sir.
Ahmed Farouk Ghoneim. Thank you for having us, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Dear
Thank
viewers, please stay with Nile TV International. Rana and I will be back here on Nile Cruise momentarily.